That was Nease head coach Colin Drafts. His post-game rearing speech for his team after a dominating performance against Creekside. Man, Nease is on fire right now. Oakleaf is on fire right now. Rains is on fire right now. Bradford is on fire right now. Mandarin is on fire right now. Listen, which team is going to be number one on our power rankings? Tune in to DuvalSports.com. We release it every Friday with the game preview and our top 10. Don't miss it. We're going to recap week 2 and preview week 3 on this week's Duval Sports podcast. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Duval Sports podcast. I'm Andre Ellis, founder of Duval Sports, and we're here to recap week 2 in high school football here in Northeast Florida. First, let's get to who got the sauce. Last week, who had the sauce? It was Adron Walker of Rains. He was the Duval Sports Player of the Week, sponsored by Georgia Maize. Level up your sauce. He had the sauce against Bolles. It was the marquee matchup, week 1. All eyes were on Bolles and Rains on the road, and he was there for his quarterback. He caught 2 touchdown passes, including a one-handed touchdown pass, a one-handed catch down the left sideline. Just amazing. We talked about it last week. He was the week 1 player of the week. Week 2 player of the week goes to none other than Jeremiah McKenzie of Bradford. Listen, you can play high school football and never hear a stat line like this, okay? Jeremiah had not just 1 punt block, but 2 punt blocks in a game. And one of those punt blocks led to a scoop and score touchdown. Not only did he have 2 punt blocks, he led his team in tackles with 8 tackles on the game versus Dunnellon. So not only on special teams, not only on defense, but yeah, on offense as well. Jeremiah McKenzie scored on a 16-yard touchdown run. They put him in at quarterback, and he got several yards. He had 55 yards rushing at quarterback, scored in the game. He had a touchdown on offense, 2 punt blocks on special teams, and led his team in tackles on defense. He is the Duval Sports Player of the Week for week 2, sponsored by Georgia Maize. Jeremiah, you got the sauce.
Ready to sauce up your wings, brisket, and veggies? Try Georgia Maize Buffalo Wing Sauce and Georgia Maize Garlic Hot Sauce. Our do-it-all sauces make meal prep quick, convenient, and fun. The smooth finish of our delicious buffalo sauce coats every wing evenly, delivering a flavor-packed bite every single time. Try dipping for even more flavor. Our garlic hot sauce brings any dish to the next level. Shop online at bdscaters.com.
Now let's talk about that game. Dunnellon at Bradford. I was at that game. Let me tell you, it was just as it was billed to be. 2 very similar teams that like to run the ball and play defense. And it looked that it was going to be that way at first. Bradford stopped Dunnellon, and Dunnellon was going to punt the ball, and Jeremiah McKenzie blocked the punt. Jaquez Kaysen scooped it up and scored the first points for Bradford. That's how Bradford showed how they were different than Dunnellon. Yeah, both teams like to run the ball, both teams like to play defense, but that coaching staff from Bradford, they found something to exploit, and they did. Not once, but twice. Jeremiah McKenzie blocked another punt later in the game to switch the field position. And that's what this game was. This game ended up being a game of field position. Bradford was in the plus for most of the game. Even though Dunnellon kept it to 1 score for a lot of times, Bradford never seemed to be in trouble in losing this game. Gino Addison, let me tell you, 2 touchdowns rushing for Bradford. This kid is a baller, man. He had 103 yards rushing, so it was something to behold for him. Not only that, but Bradford got Great efforts from their defense. They have one of the biggest defensive linebackers in the area. Defensive backs and linebackers, 6'4", 6'5", 6'2". So just some impressive players for Bradford. So that was a big win, and Bradford moves to 2-0. All right, we're moving on. Let's talk Mandarin and Atlantic Coast. Now, this is not a game that I would normally talk about because it was not close. I mean, Mandarin completely dismantled them 47-0. But the reason we're talking about this game is because there was a serious injury to Mandarin quarterback Tramell Jones Jr. Just such a great young man, great family, great talent, 4-star quarterback, FSU commit. He went down with an apparent lower leg injury after throwing 2 touchdowns early in the game. Threw one to Jamie French. He had thrown for 142 yards in the contest and 2 touchdowns. Went down. He was carted off. They had to bring out the cart and drove out. And unfortunately, we're hearing that it's going to require surgery for that injury. So he's going to be out for a considerable amount of time, possibly the entire regular season. So just a tremendous blow to Mandarin. Their leader, their quarterback for the last 4 years, of a 4-year starter. You just hate to see that happen. As a parent of a high school player and now in college, I can tell you that was the worst fear for me. And so we're praying for Tramell, his family, speedy recovery, Mandarin's going to have to move ahead. They're going to have to move ahead with quarterback Knox Ennis. Knox, we've covered him in middle school in St. Johns County. The kid can ball. He actually came in and scored 2 touchdowns on the ground versus Atlantic Coast. So he's not afraid of the moment. He led his team to a middle school championship. You can check out that story on DuvalSports.com. We were there with him leading his middle school team just last year. So now he's thrusted into a team that's already made. So now the defense is going to have to step up, carry the offense a little bit. But the good thing about that Mandarin team is, Toby likes to run the ball. And that's what I like about him. He's someone that likes to stay true to the run, and they've got a stable of running backs. I mean, they had 4 running backs that scored touchdowns. They had 5 that touched the ball. Okay, including Ennis. I'm including Ennis in there because he scored 2 touchdowns. So. Mandarin's not done by any stretch of the means. They've got 2 5-stars, okay? 2 5-stars. They've got Drake Stubbs and they've got Jamie French. They've got possibly the best secondary I have seen since Trinity with Wade and Tyreek Nunn and then of course Miles and Fred. But this might be the best secondary. Okay, not names that you kind of know. They've got a 4-star in Brody Jennings who is still blossoming, but Tamaj Mitchell, watch out for him. I coached his brother, Amari Mitchell, who went on to play college football at West Florida. So Mitchell, that's the name to look for. He is amazing, and he's been making plays for them. He had an interception last game in week 1. So you're talking about somebody who's really been balling. They also have Sharif Jackson, who has played very well as well. He has an interception last game, and he has an interception for the first game. And Kamari Spriggs had an interception this past game. So they've got so much talent on this team. Israel Ratliff, linebacker for them, who's outstanding. So they're not done by a long shot. Watch out for Mandarin. But we're still praying for Tramell Jones for a speedy recovery. All right, back to the action. Let's talk Riverside and Fleming Island. This was a game of two teams seemingly meeting right in the middle of the road. Fleming Island got a comeback win against Clay, and Riverside got blown out by Oakleaf. So both were trying to make statements about who they were as teams. And Riverside came out with the win. It was a high-scoring contest, 48-39. Man, they finally got the ball to Tayshawn Gelsey. Gelsey had 5 touchdowns in the game. Not 1, not 2, not 3. I'm doing my LeBron. But the 4-star tight end committed to Florida is averaging 103 yards per game. He just completely went off against Fleming Island with 207 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns on the year. So just amazing numbers so far for him. And as long as they get him the ball, Riverside is going to make a lot of noise. Now, who's going to get him the ball? Riverside has had this problem before. I spoke out against this problem before. They've got 2 quarterbacks right now, and they put both of them in the game. Okay, Glenn Foreman III and Jaden Dunnellon. Both are very good quarterbacks. Both are very different. So both are starters. Both are starting quarterbacks in Northeast Florida who happen to be on the same team. So that's a good problem to have for the coaching staff for Riverside. Not necessarily a good problem to have if you are those quarterbacks, because you don't get a chance to get in a rhythm if you're coming in and out based on the matchups and based on the plays. You know, those coaches are asking you to basically be perfect on that play, and that's not fair to a high school kid. So that's just my opinion, and as you know, I've never shied away from speaking my opinion. So Riverside, even though they got this win, a very impressive win, there's still questions at that quarterback position. How are they going to do that? Questions on the defense. They've given up 40 and 30 points back-to-back weeks, so that defense has to get shored up. Maybe some of them offensive players got to go over to defense, because when you're an athlete in high school, you're an athlete. So if you're a 4-star on offense, you can be at least a 3-star on defense. Okay, so sometimes you have to do that in order to get the ball rolling, and maybe Riverside did that with their win. They'll have an easy contest against Orange Park coming up. Fleming Island, they've got rival Oakleaf coming up. We'll preview that game. That was head coach Colin Drafts of the Nease Panthers with that stirring post-game speech. Man, I mean, it's giving me chills just listen to it. And how can you not have chills? I mean, Nease taking care of Ponte Vedra game 1. Nease taking care of Creekside game 2. And we're not talking about squeaking by now. We're talking about dominating. I mean, held Ponte Vedra to 1 touchdown. Held Creekside to 1 touchdown. Put up 45 points against Creekside. So Colin Drafts has Nease on the prowl right now. The Panthers are on the prowl. Let's talk about that quarterback, Nate Harry. Nate Harry, 239 yards passing against Creekside, 2 touchdowns. He's just really playing outstanding football. Rushing the ball, KJ Perry is leading them in rushing. He scored. Then from the receiving, Braden Felder, he scored last week again. So that's 3 touchdowns for him in 2 games. But then another receiver stepped up this week. Vernon Stevens scored twice this past week against Creekside. So they've got weapons coming out of everywhere, and it's hard for defenses to match up against them because they don't know which weapon they're going to go to each game. But we've got to give that defense some props, because holding Creekside to 7 points, holding Ponte Vedra to low points, that's just great defense. And Joe Miracle has had 2 miracle games back to back. He had a sack in this previous game. So the defense is really playing well. The offense is playing even better. Nease is a team that you got to watch out for. Let's go to the upset of the week. Ponte Vedra went into Bartram and got the upset victory, 28-21. Let me tell you, I was in Bradford with my good friend Will Brown. We were on the sidelines covering that game, and I checked the scores on Duval Sports, and I looked at it, and it said Ponte Vedra was up 28-21, and I was getting texts. I wasn't the only one that couldn't believe that, because Ponte Vedra had fallen to Nease the week before. So Coach Price, kudos to you getting your team ready to come back, and man, the Price was right in week 2. Drew Price tossed 2 touchdowns, and then he handed it off to his running back, Brian Case. Brian Case had a rushing touchdown and he had a receiving touchdown. So there was just lots of things working for Ponte Vedra that weren't working in week 1, and Bartram just could not stop him. Even though Bartram, statistically wise, had a great game. Jaden Weatherly tossed 2 touchdowns. Arthur Lewis IV rushed for 130 yards and a touchdown. So I mean, they were really putting up a lot of big time numbers. So with that game, you just never know with 2 well-coached teams but Bartram had won their first game. Ponte Vedra had their backs against the wall, and they came out swinging. Alright, let's get into the previews for week 3. So, Bolles and St. Augustine. This is the marquee matchup. It went down to the wire last year. St. Augustine got that win, and that really galvanized St. Augustine all the way to the national championship game. To the state championship game. They didn't lose a game until that state championship game against Mainland. So Bolles is going to be wanting revenge, and Bolles is going to want to build off that impressive win against Trinity. Now, this is not Trinity that they have. This is St. Augustine with Lachlan Hewlett, who has over 400 yards passing this year so far, multiple touchdowns. He's got Carl Jenkins Jr., who has scored a touchdown already. Samarion Wingo, it leads them in receiving yards. Trenton Jones is back. So they've got weapons at receiver, and they're going to be flying high. So Bolles showed that they struggle in the secondary against Rings. So they really weren't tested in the secondary against Trinity. So it's yet to be seen if they've worked out the kinks in the secondary. So that's going to be a key matchup to watch to see if Carl Jenkins Jr. and company can exploit what Reigns exploited in the first week. On the flip side of that, Naeem Burrows, Corbin Fordham, Chase Collier, they can do some damage against St. Augustine. Now there's Brandon James, who is there, a magnificent defensive back. So that's going to be someone that they're probably going to try to match up. They might match up Brandon on Naeem, so watch out for that. But St. Augustine is going to have to show some other talent to be able to match up with them, or else this is going to be a high-scoring, high-flying game like it was last year. Two very exquisite coaching staffs, Coach Braddock in St. Augustine, Coach Toblin with Bolles. So it's going to be a big-time matchup. The key is going to be, in my opinion, the key is going to be the running game. And I believe Bolles right now has that advantage if they can get that going. So watch out for those different matchups, and we'll be at that game. So follow us on Duval Sports. All right, let's preview this one. Oakleaf and Fleming Island. Always a big-time Clay County matchup here. And Oakleaf is 2-0. They're rolling. 35 points scored against Riverside. 40-plus points scored against Orange Park, a shutout. Christopher Ford, the second, Deuce, leading them in rushing. Jack McKissick leading them in passing. He has over 400 yards passing in 2 games. They are honestly just playing really good football. Michael Connor, Mike, leading them in receiving, along with Carlos Withrop. So they've got weapons, and their defense, man. Oh my goodness, their defense is just spectacular. Anthony Smith, Brian Copeland. The list goes on and on. So they are making statements, and they want to make a statement against Fleming Island. Fleming Island has to make a statement of their own. Who is Fleming Island? What's Fleming Island's identity? They've started slow in back-to-back games, and that's indicative. Of course, they had to bring in the new head coach after the dismissal of Chad Parker right before the season started, so that was a disadvantage for Fleming Island. But they got a win against Clay, a comeback win. But against Riverside, they started slow and tried to come back, but couldn't come back. They just ran out of time and didn't have the horses to be able to run the full race. So that's going to be a big question for Fleming Island. Do they have all of their horses there? If Fleming Island can get the leadership they need from their leaders, if they can get the performances that they can from people like Demir Jackson, who is leading them in rushing. Eric Gentry came in at quarterback last week, but he's a key player on their team. AJ Witt is as well. Sebastian Cruz is as well. So they've got people on the team that have talent, and this is going to be a big time test for Fleming Island. All right, let's get to some teams that we haven't talked about. So I want to talk about Zarephath. Man, they are undefeated, 3-0. They beat Episcopal. They just finished that game up. Went down south, won their game down south. Beat Fernandina Beach. So just an outstanding job that Zarephath is doing. Coach Ira Durham is really leading that team well. Jordan Durham, quarterback, is slinging it all over the place. He is such a big dynamic talent that college coaches need to definitely pay attention to. Just because you go to a small school doesn't mean you're not a big time talent, and he definitely is. So watch out for him. Zarephath has got some big time players on offense. Their receiver is really tearing it up. So defenses have to watch out for that offense led by Durham, which is really putting up some numbers. But kudos to them. Also, Christ Church Christchurch really is doing a great job. Undefeated, beat a previous undefeated Paxton, and they are 3-0. So Christchurch is really doing a great job and handling business, on the field. Kyrie Wilson is just Mr. Everything for them. Plays defense, plays offense. They're leading rusher. So kudos to Christchurch and what they're doing as well. So those are two teams that we definitely want to highlight that don't get a lot of limelight, but early on they are prime time. Teams that we were at, we had great coverage. You can follow us at Duval Sports on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course visit the website www.duvalsports.com.